encourage people, especially if listening is something you're actively practicing or trying to get better at, download the levels of listening, just like have them up in a sticky note on your screen when you're working, and actually think of it. I mean, kind of gamify this. At what level are you listening when you're talking to people? So think about it in that context is my recommendation. So the first level is downloading. So this is just listening from habit. This is kind of why I said listening well is important, right? Because if I'm listening from my habits, from my context, from my biases, from my contextual frame of mind, I'm really translating your message at all times. So you're saying something, I'm translating it based on my knowledge and what I understand, and I've listened. This is habitually what we're doing every day. Second level of listening, which is, I think, a level that a lot of people try to explore, is factual. So this is listening outside of your bias and assumptions, outside of your mind, and listening for the objective facts. And so this would get down to what was said, not what did you assume their tone to be? What did you assume based on their body language? What did you assume based on prior context you know about this situation? Just factually, what was said? What were the words that came out of their mouth? What were the facts? And so, especially if you're working with a coach, you can have a nice back and forth on what you think was said in this situation. And anyone who's ever studied crime or law or seen Law and Order has an idea that the facts are hard to remember appropriately, right? Then we get into the third level of listening. This is where I would actually challenge that I don't think most people do as commonly, or at least aren't as thoughtful or perceptive of it, which is empathetic listening. So this is listening truly to understand the perspective of the other person, to consider it in their shoes, to consider, what is in their mind. So whatever biases and contexts and perceptions you have going into a conversation, they have them as well. So really trying to think about their perspective, their side of things. And when I practice or do this with someone, again, this is an exercise I highly recommend doing with a coach, a friend, a partner, anyone who can challenge you to get out of your head and think from their perspective. But when doing this with someone, trying to be thoughtful and catch yourself when you start to slide back into your own subjective opinion. Well, they probably think this, but listen, here's the deal. Well, they probably think this, but listen, I mean, anything where you just add a but or start to slide into your own assumption, can you just drop that for a moment? What are all the different perceptions, thoughts, motivators, needs they may be bringing into that conversation? And then the last level that actually Anna helps me understand how to communicate, because we discuss this one a lot, is generative. And it's when anything becomes possible. So it can be a bit hard to grasp, but the way we finally landed on explaining it that I think is just most clear is the idea that you're dropping your perceptions, beliefs, context, and understanding. The other person is also dropping theirs, and you're willing to come to a truly generative, explorative conversation around what is being said. I'm willing to think of any possibility. So if you're into negotiation, this is expanding the pie. If you're a brainstormer or an innovator, this is when brainstorming truly happens at its finest, when I'm able to drop my beliefs, drop my perception, understand where my team member is coming from, and truly look for that new possible outcome that we would have never come to alone from what that individual is sharing. So those are the 4 levels, and I highly recommend gamify it. Give yourself a little, what level was I listening? How was I doing challenge.